with Vedant. And we have almost come on the verse of completing the first one, which is Advait Vedant. And the principal exponent is Adi Shankaracharya. There is a beautiful verse, Brahm Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiv Naparaha. And it could summarize the entire thing for us. Now you understand, truth is one, but there can be layers of truth. And truth can have three important divisions or grades. Something which is mere appearance, apparent, pratibhasik. Then we have vyavaharik, which is empirical. Then we have paramarthik, which is absolute. The analogy of a snake in a rope can help us relate with the entire story. So when we see a snake, we don't see it as a rope, it is only a snake. It can evoke the same degree of fear which a real snake could have done. But the moment you realize that it is actually a rope, the snake which was there suddenly disappears. And then you realize that you were actually too quick in your judgment. Due to ignorance of the nature of a rope, we could not know the way a rope is there. And then we see something else. Its intrinsic nature is concealed, avran, something else is projected, vikshepan, and that is how this analogy can help us understand the appearance of a world on the locus of Brahman. So Brahman, which is pure identity, devoid of all kinds of differences, three kinds of bhed, swagat, sajatiya, vijatiya, will not be applicable to Brahman. But that Brahman, the unitary cause, may appear like this world of names, forms, plurality, diversity. But it continues to remain real until you don't know Brahman. And again, as in West, you have seen something like substance. So substance is like what stands underneath. So the ultimate reality, Brahman, is like substance. It is the locus. And whatever you see are just appearances. They are just a superimposition. In this process, we have also understood some related concepts, which is like Maya, Avidya, Vivard, Adhyas. Okay? And there was this discussion pertaining to error. So Shankar has reviewed all the theories and he thinks all the theories have a problem. Either they take the object of error, the content of error as real and develop Satyakhyativad, or they take it as unreal and develop Asatyakhyativad. While the character of the error is such that it transcends the binaries. It is not definable. It cannot be defined as real because it is sublated. It cannot be defined as unreal because unreal should be trikal badhit. It did appear. To say it is both is to make a contradictory statement, and to say neither is to give up all reason and logic, and hence it is anirvachaniya. In this aspect, again, you realize if you put this analogy to world is also not real when you know Brahman. But till then, world is real. To call the world illusion is to make a fallacy, is to make, again, a wrong statement about the reality. World is not unreal. But to call it real is equally problematic. To think it is illusion is equally problematic. There are many analogies to understand. So imagine that we are exploring some city, some small town. There could be a magic show. Now, everything is in the mobile itself. Pura entertainment, OTT se leke, jo bhi dekhna ho sab mobile mein. But there was a time when people would go to some fair, mela, some peasant, some such celebration, and then they would see circus. They would see जादू का शो और मौत का कुआं, जिसमें कोई मोटरसाइकिल लेके आ जाता था. तैयारी करना मौत का कुआं में बाइक चलाना. एक बार घुस गए इसमें तो प्रीलिम्स से मेंस होता है, साइकिल चलना शुरू होता है. बीच में रुके तो एक्सीडेंट. पूरा ट्रिप करके ही निकलना होता है, आइदर विनर और एज ए टीचर. तो कुछ ना कुछ लेके बन के ही निकलते हैं आप. तो imagine that there is some such fair, कोई मेला है, and we see a magician. So एक टाइम था जब सारे जादूगर सरकार हुआ करते थे. एक शायद पीसी सरकार, एक बहुत वेल नोन जादूगर है. My memory is not failing that his name was a पीसी सरकार. There is a story that we had this साई बाबा, एक तो जो महाराष्ट्र वाले हैं, एक और क्या उनका पुट्टा फॉर with big head. So he had some such power. People used to say that, for example, you go to seek a blessing, he would give you something in your hand suddenly. So when PC Sarkar goes to meet him, whatever Babaji would give him, PC Sarkar would give with, again, kind of complimentary token. वो भी वही चीज उनको देते थे. So PC Sarkar was a very big name. और अगर वो नहीं तो कोई और सरकार है. So imagine that we happen to watch a show of such a magician, and there are many tricks. In many cases, say there is a box. They would ask a girl to go inside. She would go inside. Then he would lock it and insert many other, say, rods or certain weapons, some kind of such talwar, etc. And then suddenly he would clap, and girl would come from some other door. और इसके अंदर से कबूतर ही कबूतर. तो what will happen to the audience? They are amazed, jaw dropping. दो चार volunteer सबके मुंह बंद कर रहे हैं. तो we are impressed by the magician, and we are on his feet that we want to learn, sir. Please, please, सिखा दीजिए. सर आपके बाद भी तो वही होना चाहिए. तो he agrees कि ठीक है, चलो सिखाएंगे. So we attained a show, a lesson, a kind of short term course, जैसे भी हम लोग philosophy में कर रहे हैं. तो जादू में शो हमने कर लिया, कोर्स कर लिया. And then we learn the trick. Now imagine we are there as the volunteers, and he is performing next to show, and he is doing all of this, and we know what is happening, and we can see that इनका मुंह खुला, अब ये amazed हैं, and we go and close their mouth. So as long as you don't know the trick, it is working on you. Now you know, you can see through it how it happens. So there is no magic. As long as we are ignorant, this world is magical. मजा आता है, चमत्कार है कितना, full of pleasures है. But when you know the reality, this world is no longer able to hold your attention. You can see through it, and that is like the state when you reach a paramarthic level, and that will become like moksha. So in some way, Shankar has given through this story a very scientific worldview that quest for truth should remain always constant. No matter where you reach, on that day it appears like absolute, but never accept it as the ultimate absolute. As you see, we have come a long way. There have been many times when all of them were like absolute truth. When they had this, many people would have thought, "Ab to sari mystery solve ho gayi." Suddenly they realize that it has been falsified. Truth is this, not that. But same was the case with this. So today's truth is also going to be transcended. So for us, thus, it will become like a journey, not a destination. But for some kind of completion of this story, जहां पहुंचेंगे वो है ब्राह्मण, लेकिन हम लोग कभी पहुंचेंगे नहीं, because the realm of subject object, the dichotomies of myself yourself is always lower than this. So we will only remain at this व्यवहारिक level, but there is a kind of constant progression. तो ये बहुत ही scientific perspective है इनका, as I related it with some scientists like fallibilism. Today's truth should be in accordance with existing evidences and facts. So likewise, when you have to think about God, your understanding of God today may not be like what it could have been several thousand years ago. And if by putting aside all reason and logic, we are here and yet we accept this, it may not augur well for the welfare of humanity and for the welfare of any one of us. So this is why Sagun Brahman is there, but that is not the ultimate. You have to transcend it, and then you may reach Nirgun Brahman also. So all of the rituals, emotional satisfaction may be some kind of prelude. They are like the prerequisite, but real liberation would be through what? Gyan alone. So we will take up some remaining topics, but they are all forming only one story. All the discussions we have had yesterday pertaining to error, on the face of it, it was a theory of error, but it was more like an allegory to relate with the empirical, metaphysical manifestation of this world. Adhyas Bhashya comes, and Adhyas Bhashya is using analogy of a snake in a row, but actually it is telling us how world of names, forms is a superimposition on unitary Brahman. We have discussed properly conception of a Brahman, Sagun Brahman, personal God, Nirgun Brahman, impersonal God. Earlier you had seen in Xenophanes briefly, then Spinoza revives it and very clearly states every determination is a negation. And like Xenophanes would say, if lions, horses, oxen could paint, then they would have painted God as a perfect lion, perfect horse, or a perfect ox. And Spinoza, almost the same idea he conveys through triangle, square, or circle. So Shankar is also trying to do that. And he gives us Tathastha Lakshan and Swarup Lakshan. So Tathastha Lakshan is only for an ignorant being. Just like for a person who was deceived, had seen a snake. So only an ignorant person believe in personal God. That does not mean there is a God. But at the same time, we also call, what is it, a placebo effect. But if it is having a placebo effect, तो क्या हर्ज है? जैसे मैंने कुछ ऐसे कहा कि छोटा बच्चा घर से नहीं भाग रहा है, और आपने कुछ क्या नाम बताया था मैंने? हाँ, गुगु बुबु कुछ भी. तो कोई गुगु है जो आपको उठा लेगा. अगर इतना उससे काम हो रहा है कि बच्चा डिसिप्लिन है, तो दैट इज हाउ, जब तक हम लोग अबोध हैं और एक पर्सनल गॉड के कंस्ट्रक्ट से वी आर वेरी विजिलेंट, वी आर वॉचफुल, वी आर नॉट डाइग्रेसिंग फ्रॉम राइट पाथ, तो कोई हर्ज नहीं है. सो वी नीड गॉड फॉर आवर साइकोलॉजिकल in some way contentment, a kind of inner peace, faith for the sake of discipline. But that does not mean it will liberate you. Because if that is not existing, you have to know the truth. And the truth is, go to the core of the matter. So moksha will be only through Gyan, and that is like Brahma Gyan. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Okay, so he has prescribed in contrast to, अगर ये कहीं मैंने properly आपको लिखाया है कि नहीं अभी, तो एक जगह कहीं bullet point बना लीजिए, आंसर वगैरह इसको यूज कीजिएगा. In contrast to पूर्ण मीमांसा, Shankar prescribes Brahma Jigyasa. या पूरा चाहें तो he prescribes an inquiry into the nature of Brahman. क्या लिखेंगे पूरा? टेक्निकली अथातो ब्रह्म जिज्ञासा. वही सारी चीजें हैं, बस धर्म की जगह लिख दीजिएगा ब्रह्म. कुछ बातें हम लोग अभी इस पे लिखेंगे प्रॉपर्ली. ओके, तो कहानी क्लियर है अभी तक? सो वी विल डेवलप सम कंपोनेंट ऑफ इट फर्दर, बट फर्स्ट वी हैव टू कंप्लीट सत्यकार्यवाद व्हिच वी वर डिस्कसिंग. विवर्तवाद का कोई और एग्जाम्पल अदर देन शंकर, तो शंकर ही मानते हैं ऐसे तो विवर्तवाद, लेकिन अगर दूसरे इसमें देखें तो विवर्तवाद इज ऑल्सो लाइक व्हाट यू सी इन द केस ऑफ बुद्धिज्म. ओके, बिकॉज व्हाट यू सी इज नॉट रियल, इट इज ऑल कंस्ट्रक्ट. ओके, सो इफ समथिंग हैज ओनली साइकोलॉजिकल जस्टिफिकेशन, तो देखा जाए तो एक तरह का आत्मख्याति भी कुछ हद तक विवर्त है. व्हाट इज इंटरनल appears as if it is external. But this concept, technically, vivert is coined by Shankar. तो आप ये नहीं बोल सकते कि वो विवर्तवाद uphold कर रहे हैं, but a similar position is coming, that is all the plurality, diversity is only there before you as an appearance. अब याद कीजिए layers of reality, तो वहां भी आपको मिलता जुलता याद आएगा. Can you recall the terminology? Layers of reality, मीमांसा माध्यमिक में भी है, योगाचार में भी है, शंकर में भी है, and that is why there is some kind of continuity with regard to appearance. तो terminologies याद है आपको? हाँ, पारमार्थिक तो कॉमन था. ओके, तो परिकल्पित शब्द से ही पता चला ना कि परिकल्पना, परिकल्पित, एंड देन परतंत्र, परिनिष्पन्न. ओके, और माध्यमिक में संवृत्ति. संवृत्ति इज व्यावहारिक, तो मिथ्या संवृत्ति, Samvriti and Paramarthik. So somehow you see that there is a gradation. So hence, at many points you see so much convergence between Shankar and Mahayanist. But if they have to then establish their identity, they need to be critical of each other and very vehemently they critique each other. Okay? और बुद्धिज्म को कोई बाहरी क्या अटैक करेगा, उसके अंदर ही इतने ट्रेडिशन है कि वो लोग अंदर ही इतने एक दूसरे का थ्योरी रिजेक्ट करते हैं कि उनको जो बोलते हैं कि हमने तो अपनों ने लूटा, बैरों में कहा दम था, तो डूबी अपनी कश्ती वहां जा पानी कम। तो बुद्धिज्म के जितने इनसाइडर्स हैं वही काफी है एक दूसरे के लिए। ओके, तो वी वर डिस्कसिंग सत्यकार्यवाद। तो व्हाट यू हैव सीन दैट शंकर's point is effect is a mere appearance. It is in sync with the fundamental teaching. If there is anything that is real, it cannot come into existence. It cannot go out of existence. So hence, if you talk about effect coming into existence, it cannot be real. So hence, cause is the only reality. And so-called effect can be a viver. And the moment you know cause, that appearance is removed. In some way, as we have already seen, this is your absolute truth until you don't go there. If the world is now before you, you will know that it is a mere appearance. It is apparent when you come here. But when we are here, this is the truth. Don't then question it. This has to be there. And famously, he and many other Rishi would say that to call the world unreal is to express your ignorance. Only one who is ignorant will call this world illusion. One who calls the world illusion is not qualified to say so. And one who is qualified to say so would never say that world is only appearance. इसीलिए शंकर के हिसाब से वर्ल्ड अभी जहां हम लोग हैं ये रियल है, but eventually it will go to the next level. So in some way, Ramanuja's position is already there, and it goes beyond it. Thus, Parinamvad is a prelude to Vivartavad, a world which is not completely real. It has to remain absolutely Brahman in all these stages. It cannot be that a world is real in the beginning and it becomes unreal. तो जो नहीं है वो ना शुरू में है ना लास्ट में है, and there is only one truth. But there is a gradation to thus Ramanuja's philosophy is the philosophy of Ramanuja at Vyavaharik level. Hence, to talk about Vivartavad, one has to go beyond this. So Shankar's philosophy, which is from Paramarthik level, cannot be understood from Vyavaharik level. So only when one reaches Paramarthik level, this world disappears and then this world becomes a Vivarth. But while we are here, it is Parinamvad. तो शंकर इसीलिए inclusive है everything that Ramanuja has stated. तो ये बात लिखनी है, and then we'll go to two important topics, which is like conception of a Jeev. As now we are here, and you also understand, Atma is Brahman. Atma cha Brahman. Then a very important topic again would be conception of liberation. Almost the same topics. No matter whether you study चारवाक, यही सब पढ़े, हम कौन हैं, वर्ल्ड क्या है, लिबरेशन पे क्या पोजीशन है, जैन, बुद्धिज्म, न्याय, वैशेषिक, सांख्य, in Mimamsa focus is more on epistemology when we studied that as a topic. But now we will understand how Shankar is in contrast to Mimamsa's conception of liberation also. ठीक है? Unreal, सीधी बात है श्रीज, त्रिकाल बाधित, हेयर्स हॉर्न, आकाश कुसुम, समथिंग विच इज कंप्लीटली, जैसे आप बोल सकते हैं सेंटोर, ओके, काइमेरा। तो ये सारी चीजें एक तरह से अनरियल है क्योंकि ये कभी एक सेकंड के लिए भी आपको दिखा नहीं है। इसको ऐसे भी समझिए, हिंदी में कहावत है, अधजल गगरी छलकत जाए। जिसको जितना काम आता है वो नॉलेज का उतना ही नुमाइश करता है। कई दोस्त होंगे, मैं एक बात बताऊं, हर बात में वाकई सिखाएगा आपको, या जिनको नहीं आता है वो व्हाट्सएप पे बहुत पोस्ट डालते हैं। तो जो पानी शांत है उसमें मूवमेंट कम है। तो कुछ बातें उड़ती उड़ती सुन ली कि वर्ल्ड ना अनरियल है, चिल्लाने लगे लाउड स्पीकर लगा के कि भाई दुनिया अनरियल है, बट पूरी बात समझे नहीं। तो ज्ञानी विल नॉट मेक सच अनक्वालिफाइड स्टेटमेंट। कहीं भी आप देखेंगे कुछ लिख के उसके बाद लिखा कंडीशन सप्लाई। ऑटो वगैरह के पीछे भी पोस्टर होता है कि कैब ड्राइवर रिक्वायर्स, यू कैन ओन योर ओन कैब, अर्न लैक्स ऑफ रुपीज और एस्टेरिस्क, कंडीशन सप्लाई। तो कंडीशन सप्लाई करके कुछ भी बोल सकता है। जिसने कंडीशंस पे एस्टेरिस्क पे नहीं ध्यान दिया तो यही बोलेगा कि भाई ये कर लेता है। तो इन सम वे वर्ल्ड इज अनरियल, उसके बाद है एस्टेरिस्क। तो जो थोड़े नाइव हैं, अबोध हैं, उन्होंने समझा कि सितारा लगा हुआ नीचे था कि इट इज अनरियल फॉर द एनलाइटेंड वंस, और वो यहीं पे कूद के चिल्लाने लगे कि वर्ल्ड इज मिथ्या। बहुत लोग मिथ्या का मतलब समझता है अनरियल। There was, you know, this filmmaker Rajat Kapoor. He's a very good actor, very good filmmaker. जानते हैं आप लोग रजत? एक तो रजित है, वो नहीं, रजत कपूर। कोई फिल्म आपने देखी हो, जैसे have you seen this Monsoon Wedding? उसमें वो एक अंकल बने हैं, who is molesting his own niece. तो वो कैरेक्टर प्ले कर रहे हैं। That does not mean that you should hate Rajat Kapoor. तो रजत कपूर is a very well educated filmmaker and he is trained at FTII पुणे as a filmmaker. तो बहुत सारी फिल्मों को भी उन्होंने बनाया, जिसमें ये पहली फिल्म थी मिथ्या। आपने वो देखी होगी, आंखों देखी फिल्म के बारे में सुना आपने, कभी देखिएगा। अब एक स्टूडेंट के रूप में, फिलोसफी के स्टूडेंट के रूप में, हाँ, कपूर एंड सन्स में भी वो हैं जो डैड के रोल में है, वो है रजत कपूर। तो इनकी फिल्म है मिथ्या। At some point of time, I had gone to FTI to attend some program. So his film was screened, and then Rajat Kapoor was discussing. In many cases, when film is screened for the people of different languages, there can be certain translation in English. तो था मिथ्या, अब पता नहीं फिल्म के टाइटल में ही क्या नीचे था, the imposter who was not. Okay? तो मिथ्या फिल्म की कहानी लगभग वही है जो आपने कालीचरण में देखी होगी या डॉन में देखी होगी, कि असली डॉन की जगह नकली डॉन। तो द इम्पोस्टर भी समझ रहे हैं, द इम्पोस्टर हु वाज नॉट। इनफैक्ट ये लाइन इम्पोस्टर वाली कालीचरण में यूज होती है। जो असली आईपीएस ऑफिसर है इज रिप्लेस्ड बाय नकली, दोनों तो शत्रुघ्न सिन्हा ही हैं। So if somebody is a gunda, a dacoit, one will not know English. So lion bane hain, lion Ajit. So to test whether he is a real officer or a duplicate, he asked him, "Are you an imposter?" तो ordinary आदमी को क्या पता imposter क्या होता है? तो कुछ समझ हाँ. तो फिल्म में title है The Imposter Who Wasn't. So some audience, one from audience told Rajat Kapoor that, "Sir, this title mithya. Why did you call it in English The Imposter Who Wasn't?" So he said, "Blame it to my technical team, and if it does not work for you, I apologize." So I explained that how mithya is a apt title for is a cinema. उसमें जो भी कहानी था, तो mithya का मतलब unreal नहीं है. यानी अगर imagine that someone is like a don, and then is replaced by D2 कर देते हैं. So now D2 is a don. The family member is still equating D2 with don. This person D2 will become D2 only when they know the real one. Until then, he is this. अभी वो उसका status show में से अंतर क्या है? वो मिथ्या है. But it is a real dawn until you get to know who one is. The world is not an illusion. World is real. जैसे जादू जादू था. You were caught in rapt attention. It is not a magic when you know the trick. तो इसी तरह से this world is going to be real until you go beyond it. So some kind of say solution may also work in this way. जैसे मान लीजिए, if you are watching a play or actually playing a game, if you while playing you question मैं क्यों रन ऐसे दौड़ के लूं, अच्छा ऊपर से गया तो छक्का क्यों, और नीचे से गया तो नीचे से मारना भी तो डिफिकल्ट है कि फील्डर बीच में फील्डर भी हो सकते हैं तो ज्यादा रन क्यों. तो when you start to question, game would lose its value. But when you accept the rules, अब मजा पूरा आएगा. एक गेंद और 6 रन चाहिए, और फिर भाई कि और ये जो बॉल है ये बाउंड्री के बाहर जाते जाते तो in some way you enjoy life when you accept the basic. But when you come out of it, like now if you have taken a break from regular life as a civil services aspirant, that life may not attract you. And hence, this is the progression. But at some point of time, certain things were the central concern. Some of us would have enjoyed as young one. हम लोग के टाइम में बस कॉमिक्स ही होते थे, चाचा चौधरी के, रमन के, बिल्लू, पिंकी. तो मैंने सोचा था when I will start to earn, मैं सारे डाइजेस्ट खरीद लूंगा, दिन रात पढ़ूंगा. But today someone would ask me कि read this चाचा चौधरी और राका का पूरा डाइजेस्ट है, तो मजा सजा बन जाएगी. But that time पूरा डाइजेस्ट चाचा चौधरी और राका का बदला में वर्क फॉर मी. इसी तरह से संसार तब तक वर्क करेगा जब तक यू डोंट नो द नेक्स्ट लेवल. एंड हेंस वी ऑल आर ग्रोइंग ऑन ए रेगुलर बेसिस. इसका मतलब ये है. ठीक है, तो चलिए पहले कंप्लीट करते हैं जो लिख रहे थे जी.
तो वाई परिणामवाद इंटीग्रल.
परिणामवाद इज इंटीग्रल, यानी विवर्त बिकम्स विवर्त व्हेन यू गो टू द हाईएस्ट लेवल ऑफ रियलिटी. जादू तब तक जादू है, रियल वो वाला नहीं. कौन सा जादू, वो कौन सी फिल्म थी? कोई मिल गया. तो जादू तब तक जादू है जब तक आप ट्रिक नहीं जान जाते. तो जब ट्रिक जान गए तो विवर्त है. ठीक है, तो देयर इज ए काइंड ऑफ लेयर ऑफ रियलिटी. तो पहले परिणाम है, एंड परिणाम इज गोइंग टू कल्मिनेट इनटू विवर्त. ओके, अभी लिखेंगे भी इस बात को. So what was the last thing you had written about Tathast Lakshan? अच्छा. Okay, आगे लिखें. The Sagun Brahman of, अगर रिपीट भी हो रहा होगा तो कोई बात नहीं, कल मैंने क्या कहा नहीं, का पूरी तरह से याद नहीं. The Sagun Brahman of Shankar is the ontological Brahman of Ramanuj. For Ramanuj, Brahman is Sagun alone. कुछ चीजें फिर से आपको रामानुज के नोट्स में भी मिलेंगी. निर्गुण कोट अनकोट, निर्गुण implies negative attributes. Thus, as the Sagun Brahman, Brahman is devoid of all imperfections and negative attributes. At the Vyavaharik level, Shankar's philosophy is almost the same with the position of Ramanuj. For Shankar, the empirical world is real until one attains the right knowledge of Brahman. By acquiring the Brahma Gyan, one transcends the Vyavaharik Jagat. वर्ल्ड को जगत बोल सकते हैं, याद है? ब्रह्म सत्यम जगत या जगन. एक जगन याद है ना, नाम भी है. ओके, तो मतलब उसका जगत ही है. ओके, हाँ, तो by acquiring the Brahma Gyan, one transcends the phenomenal Jagat and climbs up to the absolute, Paramarthik level. As long as one is ignorant of one's true nature, the world is very much real. It is as real as it could be for any realists, singular for any realist, comma, including Ramanuj. Thus, for an ignorant being, the world, which is essentially a rebirth, the world which is essentially a rebirth, appears like a parinam. Hence, Parinamvad is a prelude to Vivartavad. Parinamvad logically leads to Vivartavad. Ontologically, comma, the world is not real in the beginning, comma, in the end, as well as in the middle. Hence, Brahma Vivartavad is inclusive of Brahma Parinamvad. Okay, so this was our Satyakariyavad. And you can also contrast it with Prakriti Parinamvad of Sankhya. And then you have another theory, Asatyakariyavad of Nyaya Vaisheshik. It may be given to Charvak, it can be given to some Buddhists also. And you also have Nagarjuna's perspective to write some concluding line. What is your position in this regard? Okay. Now let's understand conception of Jiva. So when the word Jiva is used, it refers to this empirical being that we are now. So either you call it empirical self or phenomenal self, or it is like the ego. In the case of Sankhya, you have seen Antahkaran, okay, Chitta. Now in that tradition also you have seen Purush and then Antahkaran, Prakriti. So likewise, right now, an individual is like a blend of two things, something like subject and something like object, okay. Subject is like, in some way, the real us, Atma. It is pure consciousness. It is always, in ontological sense, untouched. Jaise, rope had never even moved, has not even started to raise its head like a snake. But you thought it is like that. So similarly, in true sense, Atma is always outside this. But when we are ignorant, we are equating it with what it is not. Self is again equated with not self. Right now, it is like the witness. तो एक तरह से फिर से वही ये साक्षी है या साक्षिन है, witness है. And this is like our antahkaran, a product of prakriti in some way. So overall, this empirical sense of I is rooted in avidya, and we are not able to know our true being. As an ignorant being, we are at the vyavaharik jagat, empirical level, and we think this is me. It is like myself, asmat, and you, and we see someone as other, yushmat. So asmat, yushmat, division. You and me, plurality, diversity, and eventually when it would know who one is, again it is like Atmagyan, know yourself. और वो aspect हम लोग next topic में focus करेंगे. There is a continuity that is like moksha. So now, as a phenomenal ego, in the background we are carrying this consciousness, and every other thing that we are equating ourselves with is a mere an appearance. तो जब ज्ञान होगा, तो we will get to know everything is actually one. There is a difference between Sankhya and Shankar. Purush acquires a discriminatory knowledge. I am different from Prakriti, and in this case, I am one with everything. And that is again a point of difference between Sankhya and Advait, which is again like Pradhanamal. Shankar thinks Sankhya is the principal opponent of his. So ek wo andar bhi hai. So this I has to know eventually that Atma is Brahman, ya Atma cha aage nahi. Atma cha Brahm ya Atman is Brahman. So Atma cha Brahm jab realize hoga. Plurality, diversity is eliminated, and from Vyavaharik Jagat we go to Paramarthik level. So while we are in this world, we can have different stages of awareness. And in some awareness, we are better placed to acquire this knowledge of who we are. So consciousness के कई stages हैं एक phenomenal being के रूप में. Sometimes we are in a wakeful state. Sometimes we are in a dream state. And sometimes we are in sleep state. तो जब हम लोग जैसे अभी हैं wakeful state, तो ये क्या है? जागृत अवस्था. When we are in a dream, it is like a स्वप्न अवस्था. एक साथ बोलें तो स्वप्न अवस्था. And sleep is like सुसुप्ति. At all the three levels, there is a consciousness. ये जो साक्षिन है, this is illuminating everything for us. Now what we have to do as this I, we have consciousness or awareness at all the three levels. Some state is conducive to know your true being, acquire the knowledge of Brahman, and of course it is Jagrat, where you can reflect, you can contemplate, you can meditate, and that will take you to the knowledge of Brahman. But you do know, even here, there is consciousness. Sometimes many people may find a solution in dream. Some painters would paint what they see in dream, and that is how again some genre or some style is created, and surrealism एक art form है. तो ये भी पूरी तरह नहीं, लेकिन it can also be helpful to acquire right knowledge. In deep sleep state, also there is consciousness. When we come out, this is like a dreamless sound sleep. When we sleep and we come out of it, we say, I slept well. It was very refreshing. This is the 3 layers of consciousness while we are now in this world. But there can be another 4th state, and that 4th state is like Turiya. In some way, in all of this, there is some kind of subject-object dichotomy. Consciousness is conscious of something, which is central to most of the Western traditions understanding of consciousness. कि consciousness हमेशा intentionality के साथ होती है. It is conscious of something, about something. Turiya state is talking about pure consciousness, a state of consciousness which transcends this. And that Turiya state is like the state we have to eventually attain, which is like beyond these 3 layers, all right? And then when we attain the Brahma Gyan, it is like pure consciousness, where there is no internal division. You remember, no external difference, no internal difference. So usme consciousness is not even conscious of anything. Right? Generally, we are always aware of something, even hotness, coldness, hunger, ease, unease. हर तरह के consciousness में एक कुछ होगा जिसको लेके हम conscious of होते हैं. Okay, so this is briefly his conception of self. You can again gradually compare it with all the names you have seen. You also understand that an individual is an individual until one attains the right knowledge. The moment we attain Brahma knowledge or one's own true nature, this individual is gone. Phenomenal reality, but not absolute reality. But in many other traditions, बाद में रामानुज देखेंगे, मध्वा देखेंगे. Previously, you have seen बहुपुरुषवाद in Sankhya, you have seen many Atman in Nyaya Vaisheshik also. लेकिन यहाँ पे ये सब plurality सिर्फ व्यावहारिक जगत पे है. ये वही है श्रीज, इस जगत पे when we are in a state of ignorance, it is this phenomenal jeev. But the pure self, the ultimate self is not different from Brahman. याद है जीवो ब्रह्मैव ना परः. और बाद में जब हम लोग मोक्ष के लिए आएंगे तो जानेंगे to know Brahman is to attain moksha. To know Brahman is to become Brahman. ब्रह्मवेद ब्रह्मैव भवति. ब्रह्म हो जाना मोक्ष को प्राप्त करना है. To become Brahman is to attain मोक्ष. ब्रह्म भावश्च मोक्षः. अहम ब्रह्म अस्मि. tat tvam asi. Some of these teachings are the central teaching of our Upanishads. और उनको जैसे याद है कुछ चीजों को हमने कहा विधि वाक्य, निषेध वाक्य, तो कुछ चीजें हैं महावाक्य. सबसे प्रोफाउंड टीचिंग्स को कहा गया है महावाक्य. तो all of these like अहम ब्रह्मस्मि, tat tvam asi are the most central key elements of our Upanishads Vedanta. तो उनके थ्रू भी शंकर अपनी बात को पूरी तरह से सब्सटेंशिएट करता है. तो we will now write down his conception of self. Yes. How does he explain the pure consciousness without being conscious of something? So that has to be attained at the absolute level. But for time being, when we are in a deep state of sleep, at that very moment, there is no consciousness of everything. But there is a consciousness, and we get to know there was a consciousness because when you get up, you remember the entire period that I was sleeping all through this. So this is like a state to live rather than a state to be aware of. Analogy जिसे बता सकते हैं. We were talking about cinema. Sometimes it may happen that it works. Even Arthur Schopenhauer would say to come out of your suffering, you can engage in art. If a student may not write a good exam, may go to watch a cinema. And some cinemas can be really long. So for 3 hours, one is only concerned about कि पता नहीं ये हीरो हीरोइन की शादी होगी कहीं अपने एग्जाम को भूल के चिंता है कि इसका भाई बहुत बदमाश है हीरोइन का शादी होने नहीं देगा. तो उस समय one is completely one with what one is watching. So this kind of immersed attention is one of the way. So this is like an analogy. However, when we think about Brahma Gyan, then Brahma Gyan is forever. But this is like Rasanubhav, aesthetic experience. It is for some moment. So many aestheticians would say Rasanubhav is similar to Brahmanubhav. You break yourself, you separate yourself from day-to-day concern. It is not a personal but impersonal engagement. Generally, if we are watching a cinema in a theater, you will see everyone would laugh together or everyone will be sad together. That means now we are like Sa Hirdaya. There's only one heart who is watching it. So this kind of engagement is like a consciousness per se. But this is limited. That time you are conscious of a suffering, conscious of some celebration. But in some way you are removed from your individuality. That is why we all are able to relate. It is likely that a person may have never experienced what one is watching on the screen, like losing a very near dear one. Yet one can relate with that suffering or sorrow. So this is how, in some way, pure consciousness is like the consciousness which is assimilating, integrating all the diversity, plurality in itself. So hence, of course, we cannot talk about it. The only way would be what? Niti, niti. Not this, not this. But it will be a state of self-realization. Okay? फॉर्मलेस आत्मा हमेशा है, तो अभी बॉडी के साथ वो एसोसिएटेड है. तो इस समय जैसे सांख्य ने कहा आपको कि फॉर्मलेस पुरुष विल टेक फॉर्म, तो वही है शंकर के लिए भी, दैट रेड बॉल एनालॉजी. ओके, तो फॉर्मलेस इस सेंस में है दैट इफ यू टॉक अबाउट द फॉर्म यू आर डिटरमाइनिंग इट. ऑलराइट, तो चलिए लिखिए, कॉन्सेप्शन ऑफ जीव कोलन फेनोमेनल सेल्फ और ईगो। जीव is essentially one with Brahman. It has no ontological reality. However, it has phenomenal reality. It is real at Vyavaharik level. Yeah, it has a Vyavaharik truth, empirical truth. It is real at Vyavaharik level. In reality, it is beyond birth and death. At the phenomenal level, empirical self is many. It changes body and mind. माइंड समझ रहे ना, एक तरह से अंतर इंद्रिय। इट चेंजेस बॉडी एंड माइंड, कॉमा द वे वी चेंज क्लोथ्स। द सेल्फ या द एम्पिरिकल सेल्फ लीव्स ए बॉडी एंड acquires a new body. As long as it is ignorant, it goes through the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Jeev, as the empirical self, is a subject hyphen object complex. As empirical self, it is a subject object complex. Its subject element is pure consciousness. Sakshin. Its object element is internal organ, antahkaran. It is composed of Panchbhut, yani antahkaran is composed of. It is composed of Panchbhut. Huh? Last line क्या था? So empirical self is a subject-object complex. Its subject element is pure consciousness. साक्षिण, ये लगभग वही है जो हर ट्रेडिशन में होता है, जैसे पुरुष था is mere दृष्टा. साक्षिण का मतलब है ये इससे पूरी तरह से अलग है, लेकिन due to ignorance it has a sense of affinity, identity. Its object element is antahkaran. It is composed of Panchbhut, okay, internal organ. The source of internal organ is avidya. The source of internal organ is avidya. In perceptual knowledge या cognition, sense organs come in contact with external object, and the antahkaran, internal organ, and the antahkaran assumes the form of that object. जैसे याद होगा को कुमारिल में भी था ये. It is in Sankhya also. The perceptual knowledge is nothing but this antahkaran assumes the form of the object that it comes in contact with through sense perception. This vritti is the empirical knowledge. This vritti is the empirical knowledge. The jeev, individual ego, undergo three kinds of vritti modification. Three kinds of vritti or modifications. Wakeful, jagrat, dream, swapna, and sleep, susupti. So these are the three possible modifications or layers of consciousness also. आगे लिखें. In Jagrat state, the antahkaran is aided by the senses. One can experience the objects of the world. One can experience the objects of the world. In a swapna state, one experiences the entities of inner world. The Antahkaran functions by itself. The Antahkaran functions by itself. In Susupti state, there is awareness without any awareness. There is awareness without any awareness. Plurality is lost. Antahkaran is lost in its cause, avidya. Antahkaran is lost in avidya, which is its cause, or is lost in avidya, in its cause, avidya. However, individuality persists since sakshin is associated with avidya. Jagrat avastha can enable an aspirant to overcome avidya and strive for moksha. It can enable one to overcome avidya and strive for moksha. It is conducive to philosophical inquiry. However, inquiry is possible, in some way or the other. However, inquiry is possible in some way or the other, दोनों तरफ, in all the three states. In addition to the three states, Mandukya Upanishad, Mandukya, Ma bar. In addition to the three states, Mandukya Upanishad talk about Turiya, the fourth state, Saturth. This is the transcendent self, the pure consciousness, which is not conscious of or about anything. At Vyavaharik Jagat, there is a difference between Jeev and Ishwar. There is a difference between Jeev and Ishwar. शिरीष का सवाल है कि क्या उपनिषद्स were written before Shankar? तो शंकर का पीरियड याद है आपको? 7th, 8th CE, yeah, 18. Okay. Although we do not have many substantial evidences to exactly know, but many people have tried to study him. And a very eminent scholar is Karl Potter, and he has tried to compile Encyclopedia of Indian Philosophy. So as per his findings also, it should be 7th century to 8th century CE. अब तो बहुत सारे लोगों ने उनकी जीवनी भी लिखी है. एक फॉर्मर ब्यूरोक्रेट जो पॉलिटिशियन भी उन्होंने भी शंकर पे किताब लिखी है, अच्छी लिखी है, कभी मौका लगे तो पढ़िएगा. तो Upanishads are ancient. It is estimated to have been written even before first CE, 4th century, 5th century तक शायद सारी लिख डाली गई हैं. We'll talk about certain interesting topics in philosophy of religion. And one topic is, which we will discuss towards the end, religious pluralism and the problem of absolute truth. So there are many religions. Can you think about then something like absolute truth in the background of plurality, diversity of religion? We'll go through certain positions, and there is a very interesting again observation that most of the religions of the world have come around, वैसे वो 1000 BC की बात करते हैं, onwards इधर, and that is like axial period. All the religions which are still functional have been in some way created around this period, जिसको axial period बोलते हैं. If you see about Buddhism, तो जैसे सांख्या कारिका वाले में आपने देखा कि कपिल के बारे में उपनिषद में भी चर्चा है. And certain anecdotal stories that Kapil has created Kapil Vastu, जहाँ से कि शायद बाद में बुद्ध भी हुए हैं. So there are certain references whereby we know that all of them are very ancient, and we cannot fix one period, and we cannot even know how many Upanishads are there in all. लेकिन generally लोग 108 बोलते हैं, 108, but they are again hundreds or thousands of Upanishads. ऐसे देखें तो Upanishads are not all together new, because whatever is coming in the form of mantra, Brahman, are further explicitly stated in the form of Upanishad. तो कुछ चीजें हैं जैसे आज का Constitution और 1950 का Constitution, तो है तो वही, लेकिन there are stages of progression. Okay. Puranas are also part of the same tradition. तो कुछ उसमें writing style, subject matter इस हिसाब से कुछ लोग उसको पुराण बोलेंगे, कुछ चीजें धर्म शास्त्र हो जाएंगे. We have again other texts where like Kama Sutra and all where another Purusharth is defined. तो अब जो ancient writings हैं, वो जो पूर्व पक्ष हो गए, उसके काउंटर में कुछ लिखा जाएगा और इस हिसाब से पुराणास भी कॉइन किया गया. But overall for us, they are all equally credible source of the ultimate truth. Puranas have not come later, but then if you compare it with mantras, brahmanas, then later. तो कई stages के through हैं, okay? तो आपने क्या लिखा लास्ट में? This is the transcendent self. It is beyond all division. It is like last पर जरा कौन? अच्छा, okay. हाँ, so there is a difference between Jiva and Ishwar. Jiva, as an ignorant being, is the agent and enjoyer. It acquires merit and demerit. Ishwar, as a personal God, parenthesis में सगुण ब्राह्मण लिख सकते हैं, is the creator, sustainer and destroyer. Ishwar as a personal God is the creator, sustainer and destroyer. But ontologically, there is no difference between Jeev and Brahman. Atma cha Brahm. There is no difference between Jeev and Brahman. Atma cha Brahm ya Brahman. Due to avidya, Jeev, the self, identifies itself with the not self. It has a false notion of I and mine. It makes a distinction between oneself, asmat, and yourself, ya myself, and yourself. It makes a difference between oneself, ya myself ही बेहतर लग रहा asmat का, and yourself, yushmat. The empirical world remains real for the Jeev until one acquires the right knowledge of oneself. When the right knowledge dawns upon the individual, one attains liberation. One transcends the plurality, diversity, and individuality. One realizes that one has always remained the unitary Brahman. Thus, bondage and liberation have phenomenal truth, since Jeev and Brahman are, ontologically, one and the same. Okay, so now the next one, certain things that we are discussing now, and it would not have been very clear than what is a moksha and all. So we will discuss it separately, his conception of moksha, and that will be the final discussion about Shankar, and hopefully we'll complete it. Okay, in our tradition, especially in Vedanta, including Bhagavad Gita, there are 3 pathways to attain moksha, and they can be known as Gyan, you can know them as Marg or also Yoga. अब इसको मार्ग बोलिए या योग बोलिए. तो ज्ञान, योग या मार्ग, bhakti, योग और मार्ग, and then karma. So when we had seen Mimamsa had said athato dharma jigyasa. In a way, bhakti is also a form of karma only. This is like offering to God, and it is also day-to-day sukarma. Okay, and that is how they can both be like dharma. So in general, what is the dominant view? That all these 3 can be the path to, means to liberation or moksha. And when you put something together, it is like samuchayavad. So people believe that all these 3 are the pathways to moksha. But Shankar thinks karma dharma can never be the path to moksha. The root cause is ignorance. And the only source to remove avidya is what? Gyan. So Gyan is the light and avidya is the darkness, and light can remove avidya. We perform action only when we are in a state of avidya. In some way, this cannot take us to knowledge. It may be a prelude. It can help us come out of certain challenges. They can be supplementary to begin your inquiry towards moksha. But path is only Gyan. So Gyan is the only means to liberation. And one of the most important position you have seen before Ramanus and other is Mimamsa, who is emphasizing on karma. So Shankar would say why dharma jigyasa is not going to take us where we have to reach. And he prescribes what? जैसे मैंने आपको थोड़ा सा कहीं पे लिखा दिया था, Brahma Jigyasa. Okay, so he thinks Dharma Jigyasa is accepting the dichotomy of oneself and other. It is about me and the world before us. So it can work at the level of Vyavaharik Jagat. But to attain moksha, you have to go beyond it. To attain moksha is to go to Paramarthik level. And hence, Dharma Jigyasa will not work. Dharma Jigyasa is something that is like Bhavya, which has to create something which is earlier not into existence. But Brahman is already existing from the very beginning and will never go out of existence. So एक तरह से eternally है, नित्य है, ये भूत है. And it is not in that sense, as generally sometimes we say panch bhoot also. Gross, this is not like gross, but bhoot as in is forever. When you think about dharma jigyasa, it is talking about largely the end as abhyuday. So abhyuday is like climbing from lower level to higher level. या English में equivalent देखें तो हो सकता है exaltation. In some way, it is like acquiring heaven, heavenly abode. Okay, but in this case, it is something like nih shreyasya. Shreyas preyas का concept है अपने Upanishads में, अपने traditions में. तो preyas is like when we are inclined towards the mundane, worldly affair, and shreyas का path है when you try to transcend these lower mundane aspirations and you seek something very profound. So this is like a complete annihilation of subject-object duality. This is like being yourself as the only truth, Brahman, pure identity, devoid of sajatiya, vijatiya, swagat bhed. So when you think about dharma, it is about anusthan. Certain rituals, certain rites, some kind of say yajnas, sacrifices have to take place. तो ये अनुष्ठान dependent है. तो ये हो गया अनुष्ठाना पेक्ष. Anushthana peksh. But when you think about Brahma Jigyasa, it is like na hyphen ya n a bar, na anusthana peksh. In the case of dharma, there is a sense of individuality. एक पुरुष है who is like an agent performing it. तो ये तरह से व्यापार है. व्यापार is like exchange, commerce. Okay, so you are performing something as a पुरुष. तो ये है पुरुष व्यापार तंत्र. But when you think about Brahman, in a more relatable sense, when we think about certain actions, only one individual can do. It is subjective. But when we start to think, we go beyond our body. So that is like Brahma Jigyasa is na Purush Vyapar Tantra. It is about going beyond subjectivity, and it is like Purush Vyapar Tantra, which is individuality. So first and foremost, Shankar is very strongly recommending Gyan, Gyan, Gyan alone. So Brahma Gyan is the way forward. So पहले इन बातों को लिखते हैं, and then we'll go further. So topic is now conception of liberation या moksha. लिखें. For Shankar, avidya, इसमें कुछ नया नहीं है, is the root cause of bondage. Avidya is the root cause of bondage. Due to avidya, ignorance, one does not know one's true nature. One does not know one's true nature. One identifies oneself with body and mind. Parenthesis अंतःकरण. तो कुछ चीजें जो उधर हमने डिटेल में किया, we will be writing them succinctly now. And likewise, if there was few things about moksha, we'll discuss that now in greater detail. तो continuity maintain रहेगी. So one identifies oneself with body and mind, अंतःकरण. Thus, the cause of liberation is the right knowledge. Indian traditions prescribe 3 means to acquire liberation. Indian traditions या Indian philosophy prescribe 3 means to acquire liberation. कोलन या हाइफन, कर्म मार्ग या योग, कोई भी ऑर्डर में लिख सकते हैं, ज्ञान मार्ग भक्ति मार्ग तीनों लिख लीजिए, योग और मार्ग ऑब्लिक करके लिख सकते हैं. So there are 3 means, namely कर्म, ज्ञान, भक्ति, मार्ग या योग. आगे लिखें. कर्म and bhakti can be put together can be equated, can be put together, comma, since bhakti is a form of karma. Bhakti is a form of karma. Shankar asserts as in strongly claim. Shankar asserts that Jnana is the only source of liberation or moksha. Karma and bhakti may have some significance. They may have some significance, but they cannot be the source of liberation. For Ramanus and others, karma, comma, jnana and bhakti, karma, jnana and bhakti, comma, all of them, comma, can be the means to acquire liberation. They combine all the three. They propound समुच्चयवाद. समुच्चय का मतलब है सबको कंबाइन कर देना. They propound समुच्चयवाद. But Shankar rejects समुच्चयवाद. For him, Jnana does not require any aid या supplement. Jnana does not require any aid. He argues that Jnana and karma are opposed. Jnana and karma are opposed, comma, like light and darkness. Jnana and karma are opposed like light and darkness. Action can be performed in the state of ignorance. Action can be performed, चाहे तो only भी डाल दें, can be performed, comma, only in the state of ignorance. Thus, knowledge is the only path to moksha. For some structuring, create a subheading. Dharma jigyasa लिख सकते हैं जिज्ञासा. Dharma jigyasa and Brahma jigyasa. Dharma jigyasa and Brahma jigyasa.
All these मंत्र वगैरह किस कैटेगरी में?
ये सबसे इनिशियल हैं.
ये ज्ञान में आएंगे?
ये सब भक्ति में आएगा और कर्म में आएगा. हाँ, ज्ञान मैंने आपको बताया ना, वेद का डिवीजन करें तो कर्म कांड एंड उपनिषद ज्ञान कांड, ऑलराइट. लेकिन बहुत सारे और जो वेदांतिन हैं, दे आर इक्वली एम्फेसाइजिंग ऑन कर्म एंड दे हैव देयर ओन पॉइंट. विल सी दैट बिकॉज़ इफ ज्ञान इज द ओनली वन एंड देन इफेक्टिवली व्हाट हैपेंड, a major segment of humanity is completely ostracized, excluded from even touching the scriptures. And what is the source of that knowledge? They're talking about Brahma Gyan, which is enshrined in scriptures, but then interpretations had said they cannot touch it. So how would ज्ञान इज अभी उस जैसे मैंने कहा कि पार्ट में जाएंगे, तभी बस यहां तक किया हमने. अब नेक्स्ट टॉपिक बोलेंगे, तभी पहले बनाइए हेडिंग धर्म जिज्ञासा और ब्रह्म जिज्ञासा. शंकर इक्वेट्स ब्रह्म विद ज्ञान. ही इक्वेट्स ब्रह्म विद ज्ञान. धर्म इन कोट, तो वहां भी ही इक्वेट्स ब्रह्म इन कोट विद ज्ञान कोट. धर्म इन कोट रेफर्स टू कर्म इन कोट. Karma can be prefix जोड़ दीजिए सुकर्म and कुकर्मा. Dharma refers to karma. Karma can be sukarma and kukarma. Dharma refers to sukarma, comma, the principles of right conduct, the do's and don'ts. For Mimamsa, the source of dharma is vidhi vakya and nishedh vakya. For them, dharma jigyasa is the supreme object of life or purpose of life. Mimamsa Sutra claims athato dharma jigyasa. Thus, dharma jigyasa is the path to liberation. In contrast, Shankar prescribes Brahm Jigyasa. He proclaims Athato Brahm Jigyasa. He proclaims Athato Brahm Jigyasa. Mimamsa emphasizes upon कर्म कांड, या चाहे तो पूर्व मीमांसा कर दीजिए. पूर्व मीमांसा emphasizes upon कर्म कांड, while Vedant on the ज्ञान कांड of the Ved. और जहां वेदांत लिखा आपने वहां क्या लिख सकते हैं, और उत्तर मीमांसा. For Shankar, the real teachings of the Ved, the real teachings of the Ved is to acquire the right knowledge of Brahman. Thus, the import of Ved, import यानी उसे क्या निकालना है, export and import. The import or real import, the true import of Ved is Gyan and not Karma. The true import of the Ved is Gyan and not Karma. Moksha cannot be acquired through action. Moksha cannot be acquired through action or karma. Action, karma, is non-eternal, while liberation is eternal. ये पूर्व वही है शिरीष, उत्तर पक्ष और पूर्व पक्ष. जो पहले आए वो पूर्व, जो बाद में आए वो उत्तर. और मीमांसा का मतलब है inquiry. So hereby undertake a rigorous inquiry to understand the teachings enshrined in Ved. तो पूर्व मीमांसा followed by उत्तर मीमांसा, जिन्होंने कर्म कांड पे emphasize किया, और बाद में आए वेदांत जो उपनिषद पे emphasize किया. So liberation is eternal, action is non-eternal, hence action cannot be the means to liberation. Means and end must be similar in nature. Means and end must be similar in nature. To liberate is to have right knowledge of oneself. To liberate is to acquire right knowledge of oneself. To know Brahman is to become Brahman. To know Brahman is to become Brahman. Brahmaved. Brahmaiv Bhavati. To know Brahman is to become Brahman. To become Brahman, next line, to become Brahman is to attain moksha. To become Brahman is to attain moksha. Brahm Bhavascha Moksha. To become Brahman is to attain moksha. Shankar contrasts Brahm Jigyasa from Dharma Jigyasa, colon, या in the following way. Points में लिख लीजिए. Number 1. For Shankar, liberation is attained at the Paramarthic level by going beyond Vyavaharik Jagat, by transcending Vyavaharik Jagat. Liberation is attained at the Paramarthic level by transcending Vyavaharik Jagat. For Mimamsa, liberation is at Vyavaharik level alone. For Mimamsa, liberation is at the Vyavaharik level alone. It is not by transcending subject-object duality. It is not acquired by transcending the subject-object duality. Second, Brahm Jigyasa leads to, या culminates into. Brahm Jigyasa leads to Nih Shreyas. Nih Shreyas. While Dharma Jigyasa leads to, या results into Abhyuday. दिख रहा है? Results into Abhyuday. अभ्युदय, हाँ, चाहे तो इंग्लिश में लिख लें अभ्युदय के पास exaltation and निःश्रेयस्य pure consciousness comma, pure identity beyond all differences. ये क्या है? Exaltation. अगली बात लिखें, धर्म इज भव्य, धर्म इज भव्य, कॉमा, it is something to be acquired, it is accomplished. धर्म is bhavya, it is something that is acquired, that is accomplished. One gets the result after the performance of action. One gets the result after the performance of the action. Brahm is bhoot. Brahm is bhoot. It is self-evident. It is eternal. It is not brought into existence. It is not brought into existence. It is not dependent on human action. It is not dependent on human action. Next point लिखें, धर्म जिज्ञासा is अनुष्ठानापेक्ष. धर्म जिज्ञासा is अनुष्ठानापेक्ष. It depends on the performance of the rituals. धर्म जिज्ञासा ऐसे भी कर सकते हैं, धर्म जिज्ञासा depends on the performance of the rituals. पैरेंथेसिस में लिख लें अनुष्ठानापेक्ष. ब्रह्म जिज्ञासा is spontaneous. It does not depend on rituals. चाहे तो NA हाइफन देके लिख लीजिए अनुष्ठानापेक्ष, ना अनुष्ठानापेक्ष. ब्रह्म जिज्ञासा is spontaneous. It does not depend on rituals. Next point लिखें, धर्म जिज्ञासा is पुरुष, जैसे लिखते हैं व्यापार तंत्र, चाहे तो हाइफन देते हैं. धर्म जिज्ञासा is पुरुष व्यापार तंत्र, या पुरुष तंत्र भी लिख सकते हैं. It depends on the activity of the individual, comma, the agent. It depends on the activity of the individual, the agent. Brahma jigyasa is again na purush vyapar tantra. It does not depend on the activity of the moral agent. For Shankar, the ultimate truth is Brahman. The knowledge of Brahman is the only means to moksha. Thus, the study of Vedanta is the only path to liberation. The study of Vedanta results into the knowledge of Brahman. Okay, so we are understanding conception of moksha. How can one acquire moksha? And we have seen some difference. For Shankar, it is not karma, it is not bhakti, which is in some way action. Generally speaking, bhakti is like religious path, devotion. One has to completely submit oneself to the mercy of God. And we'll see these paths in the case of Ramanus and the case of Madhva. Now he is suggesting Jnana is the only means. The way you have to understand the nature of your end, your means and end should be essentially alike. When the root cause is avidya, then removal of avidya is the only source of liberation. Avidya is a darkness and the knowledge as a light can eliminate darkness. If you have to reach a state beyond plurality diversity, then action cannot take you there. Action presupposes individuality and it is a realm of subject-object dichotomy. So this is how, according to Shankar, Gyan is the only marg. Gyan is not of anything but Brahman. Brahm is differenceless. So the seeker and knowledge and what one wants to know are one and the same. Hence Brahm is Gyan. Gyan is Brahm. So let's start a jigyasa, inquiry, earnestness, aspiration to acquire the right knowledge of Brahman. And how can you acquire the right knowledge of Brahman? By studying the Ved. So when you go through all these scriptures, you know Brahman, and to know Brahman is to become Brahman, and to become Brahman is to attain moksha. All of these are thus interrelated. So if now Gyan is the source, and for that we have to study the Ved. How can we study the Ved? In some way, you want to, in some way, if I can draw an analogy, you're an aspirant. You want to liberate yourself from the suffering that you see around you. And you believe to become that, you have to acquire right knowledge. And that right knowledge, how can you change, will be with you when you become a civil servant. But when you want to be a civil servant, to occupy these central positions, there is a guru who would test whether you are suitable to be a civil servant. And that guru is like a Dholpur House, UPSC. It will take an aptitude test, CSAT एक तरह से. जब नहीं भी बोलते थे तो प्रीलिम्स और सारी पेपर्स हैं तो CSAT, your suitability for the civil services. So if we want to become a seeker of Brahman and we have to study Ved, what we have to first show? The promise. Are we deserving to study Ved? Suddenly Ved is not something like eating an ice cream कि मुंह खोले और डट गए. कुछ तैयारियां करनी पड़ेंगे. तो कोई आईएएस नहीं बन सकता कि पुलिस की वर्दी पहन लिए, डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैजिस्ट्रेट बन गए और वहां जाके बैठ गए. You have to make yourself worthy. You have to show the right aptitude that yes, you can comprehend Ved. In some way, aptitude test is needed. So if we want to study Ved, we should go to a teacher who oneself has comprehended the teachings enshrined in the text, and that person is like self-realized being, self-realized one who has acquired right knowledge of oneself, who has acquired Brahma Gyan oneself. And now we go and we plead that please help us understand the teachings of Ved. So the guru will then take what? A test, aptitude test. And that test can be known as Sadhan Chatushte. Sadhan Chatushte. Chatushta is like 4 prerequisites whereby you can study the text. Okay, sadhan sadhya means can be like sadhan, end can be sadhya. जैसे you learn from Gandhi, satya is the end, ahimsa is the means. तो कोई इसको ऐसे भी बोल सकते हैं कि सत्य है साध्य और अहिंसा है साधन. तो अगर आप वेद के ज्ञान तक जाना चाहते हैं तो आप में 4 तरह के prerequisites होने चाहिए. This is like in some way the aptitude, eligibility to acquire right knowledge. तो metaphorically I will put down all of them, लेकिन उसके बाद जब आंसर लिखेंगे तो कॉन्टेक्स्ट के हिसाब से उसको लिख सकते हैं, ज्यादा प्रेशर नहीं लीजिए. तो नित्य अनित्य वस्तु विवेक या विवेक. नित्य अनित्य वस्तु विवेक. व्हाट इज नित्य? इटर्नल. एंड अनित्य नॉन इटर्नल. तो जैसे हम लोग बहुत सारी चीजों को वैल्यू देते हैं जो डिजर्व नहीं करता. So if you have metaphorically as a seeker of the right knowledge, we should have this much discerning eyes that we should know what is to be respected more and what is to be given less importance. So sometimes as a child when you think about few things which gradually you go beyond. तो यानी वो नित्य नहीं था, उसके beyond हम आप चले गए. तो नित्य अनित्य वस्तु एक साथ बोले तो क्या हो जाएगा? नित्य अनित्य. Okay, A बार. So the aspirant should be able to distinguish between what is eternal, what is non-eternal, what is profound and what is profane. बहुत साधारण चीजें. Then there should be something like इहा मुत्रार्थ भोग विराग. इहा मुत्रार्थ इहा मुत्रार्थ भोग विराग. तो बोलते हैं भोग लगाइए. तो we should have some kind of discipline whereby we should be able to restrain ourselves from indulging in lower sensual pleasures, desires, etc. Sham दम आदि. पूरा ही चला गया. आपने लिखा था पुराना. शम दम आदि साधन संपत्त. व्हाट इज शम दम आदि? एक साथ बोले तो फिर क्या हो जाएगा? शम दमादि साधन संपत्त. वी हैव many kind of emotions which are like fugitive. What is a fugitive? कभी पुलिस स्टेशन में जाएंगे कुछ फोटो लगे होंगे फ्यूजिटिव्स, जैसे कि भगोड़े जिसको दिल्ली पुलिस की है तलाश. तो कुछ इमोशंस एक क्षण के लिए आएंगे, इतना स्ट्रांग होंगे तो उसे लगेगा कि नहीं आज तो बोल ही देता हूँ. अब जब आपने ये कहा भी सुन लीजिए. एंड देन वी रियलाइज कि मैंने क्या किया. आई शुड नॉट हैव डन. इन मेनी केसेस यू नो विद इन सेकंड ए रॉन्ग थॉट मे टेक सो मच कंट्रोल, वन मे इवन किल वनसेल्फ और अदर. तो ये जो कुछ क्षण भंग के जो इमोशंस होते हैं इस पे आपका कंट्रोल होना चाहिए. शम दम आदि साधन संपत्त. तो वी हैड सीन 3. नित्य नित्य वस्तु विवेक, इसी को दूसरा बोल दीजिए शम दम आदि साधन संपत्त. इहा मुत्रार्थ भोग विराग. एंड देन मुमुक्षत्वम. 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 What is मुमुक्षत्वम? मोक्ष के प्रति you should have an ardent अर्नेस्ट एस्पिरेशन. कि कोई आईएएस की तैयारी करने को बहुत जल्दी तैयार हो जाएगा कि आईएएस में ये है वो है, कर लें क्या तैयारी. लेकिन द मोमेंट वन में बी टोल्ड व्हाट ऑल इज टू बी डन, नेक्स्ट डे दैट एस्पिरेशन कहने को है कि भाई तैयारी तो पूरी है, कर रहे हैं, बट रूटीन आपको लगेगा नहीं लाइक एन आईएएस. इमेजिन दैट समवन गेट्स टू नो द लाइफ स्टाइल दैट आवर सेलिब्रिटीज में हैव, स्पेशली स्पोर्ट्स पर्संस, कि विराट कोहली की जिंदगी, उनकी वाइफ को देखे, उनका पानी कौन सा होता है, कितने फैन फॉलोइंग है, एमएसडी का कितना जलवा है, तो बन जाए क्या हम भी कोहली. तो नेक्स्ट डे वन में गो टू ए ट्रेनर, ए मेंटोर, एंड वन में बी टोल्ड कि जाओ ये नेहरू स्टेडियम पे 10 चक्कर लगा के आओ. पहला चक्कर पूरा हुआ नहीं कि लोग यार कोई ऐसी भी जिंदगी क्या विराट जीता है, हमारी कौन सी काम है, चलो घर पे बैठ के आलू पराठे खाएंगे. तो वन में सडनली चेंज वंस एस्पिरेशन. कुछ चैलेंजेस हुए नहीं, एंड घर का रास्ता। तो मुमुक्षत्वम का मतलब है मुमुक्ष, मोक्ष के लिए लालायित होना। यू शुड बी एन आर्डेंट सीकर, यू शुड हैव सो मच अर्नेस्टनेस दैट यू विल नॉट कॉम्प्रोमाइज। तो आफ्टर राइटिंग दिस सीसैट पेपर और से एप्टीट्यूड टेस्ट टू बी ट्रेन्ड बाय गुरु, गुरु बोलेंगे कल से और फिर क्लास शुरू करेंगे। तो थोड़ा सा टाइम है तो मैं कहानी बता देता हूँ कि आपको भी लगे सेंस ऑफ क्लोजर। तो नाउ व्हाट विल हैपन, वी विल स्टार्ट अटेंडिंग द लेसन्स। तो टीचर वुड डिलीवर एंड वी विल लिसन, श्रवण। Then we will have some confusion, we will clarify. And after clarification, we will start to think about it, manan. And when you have made sense, now you have to completely consolidate it, you have to translate it in your thought, words and action. तो ये होगा निधि ध्यासन। So what is happening? We are listening to the teacher's lecture deliverances, have clarified all the doubts, confusion. We are thinking about it, contemplating. We have completely absorbed, consolidated. When Guru could see our progression, when we have maximized our understanding, and we are meditating, one day Guru may come when we are ready, and may whisper in our ears, "Tat Tvam Asi." Tat Tvam Asi. एक साथ बोले तो तत्वमसि। एंड नाउ उसमें यानी कि कुछ चीजें थी उन्हें जाके छोंका लगा दिया तत्वमसि, एंड सडनली यू रियलाइज अहम ब्रह्म अस्मि। तो दिस इज हाउ यू हैव अटेन्ड मोक्ष। तो मोक्ष प्राप्त होते ही योर वर्ल्ड व्यू हैज चेंज्ड। यू रिमेंबर समथिंग लाइक एम्बॉडीड लिबरेशन। So this is like embodied liberation. Jivan Mukta you have become. While you are in this world, suddenly you have attained liberation, and it is like here and now. Earlier it was told that you have to wait for the body to die. And then if the main life begins hereafter, so one would not involve in this life. कब मोक्ष मिलेगा? इस लाइफ के बाद। तो जैसे पुरानी टाइम में जब लोग ट्रैवल करते थे, बहुत सारी कम ट्रेनें होती थी, लिमिटेड स्टेशन। तो एक ट्रेन से गए यहाँ से मान लीजिए जयपुर, अब 8 बजे सुबह पहुंचे, अगली ट्रेन शाम को 6 बजे आएगी। तो इतनी देर वो वेटिंग रूम में बैठेंगे। तो उनकी एक्चुअल जिंदगी वेटिंग रूम में नहीं है, बट जब तक है तो वहाँ पे बातचीत होगा, बताइए आप कहाँ तक जाएंगे, इस बार कौन इलेक्शन जीतेगा, आपके यहाँ कौन एमपी बन रहा है, इस तरह की बातें होंगी। बट नन ऑफ देम आर पार्टिसिपेटिंग। द मोमेंट अनाउंसमेंट हो गया, हो सकता है कि वो जो 6 बजे वाली ट्रेन शाम को जानी थी वो अगली सुबह 6 बजे जाएगी। तो फिर से वेटिंग रूम में बैठे हुए हैं। तो जब हम लोग ऐसे सोचें कि मोक्ष इज गोइंग टू कम hereafter, you will not have any sense of belongingness with this world. But Shankar is saying you don't have to wait. जैसे इंस्टेंट लोग आज ऐप डाउनलोड करते हैं, वो बोल रहे हैं आप तुरंत डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं मोक्ष, हियर एंड नाउ, जीवन मुक्ति। एंड नाउ दिस इज लाइक द स्टेट यू हैव सीन द मैजिक and you know the skill behind it. You are in the world yet out of it. तो कितने दिन आपको रहना होगा from जीवन मुक्ति to विदेह मुक्ति तक का जो प्रोग्रेशन होगा, and that will be as long as the baggage of fruits of your past karmas are concerned. तो hence further हम लोग कल पहले लिखेंगे जो बातें भी समझाई मैंने, and then we'll understand the kinds of karmas. We'll talk about प्रारब्ध कर्म, संचित कर्म, संचयमान कर्म, and add a few more dimension, and thereby Shankar will be over. We'll go through the questions, and then if time will permit, we'll also meet Ramanuj. Okay, so चलिए, thank you for your participation. See you all tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Until then, take care.